Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Arn right here on Westwood One. And of course, the master of ceremonies, the founder of the Four Horsemen, the Hall of Famer himself, Double A, Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you, man?
Doing good. Doing great. Hope you are as well. Hope all our listeners are taking care of themselves and staying healthy and good to go.
We are good to go. And we appreciate everybody tuning in to Dynamite last week. It was quite a different look and feel in an empty Daly's place, but I was excited to have something to do on Wednesday. So I appreciate you guys putting on a show for us.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little difficult. Let me tell you, just on behalf of the talent, I'm sure all those bumps really hurt when there's no crowd there to help your adrenaline along, but it's just part of the ongoing responsibility that we at AEW take and getting that show on the air and entertaining you and giving you something to do while you're home.
Well, let's talk about why we're here. It's WrestleMania season, and well, this WrestleMania season feels a lot different from the others in the past, but we're going to go to the not so way back machine, 5 years to March 29th, 2015, Levi Stadium, Santa Clara, California. It's WrestleMania 31. Man, this doesn't feel like 5 years ago, does it?
Does it feel like more or less to you?
Feels like more to me.
Yeah, it feels like an eternity ago, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, everything was different, and we'll talk about it here, but we should mention the company announced 76,976 fans as the attendance. Meltzer would say the basic made up number predicted to be announced, since that is more than the Super Bowl is likely to put in that stadium in January. They claimed an all-time attendance record for the new stadium, which it also was not. The markup was almost exactly 10,000 from the real number. The show wasn't sold out as stated on the show. The number in the building was right at 67,000, according to those in stadium management that had the actual number. They had added 5,000 seats in the last few weeks, so it was set up for 70,000, and the paid number should be available in a few weeks. This is something that's been heavily debated in recent years, specifically by Bruce Pritchard and Dave Meltzer. They both take issue with the way the other one says attendance is handled. Do you have any idea how the company counted attendance, or did anybody in the back, and as far as you know, give a shit?
No, because it doesn't matter.
Right.
If there's a shit pot of people there and it's full and they're all raising hell, who cares what the actual number is? There's a bunch of them, and there always is.
Let's talk about where we are with the actual show here. The WWE is going to report that the show is going to break pro wrestling's all-time gate record with a $12.6 million gross, which would put it behind the mark from WrestleMania 29, which was 12.3. And that one had Cena Rock on top when it drew the 12.3. The event for this show was a big play button. And I didn't really understand what that was, but it did some research, and apparently Vince McMahon said that it highlighted the technical prowess of Silicon Valley. What did you think of the play button being the logo here?
Explain this play button thing to me in just layman's terms.
The WrestleMania logo in 31 had what looked like a play button on your VCR back in the day at the bottom of it.
We need to take this out because I don't even know what the fuck that is.
No, we need to leave it. I love it. Listen, I don't think anybody else did either. And Vince McMahon is out here saying, oh, it represents the technical prowess. It feels weird.
A play button. I mean,
like, press play, press pause, press stop, play. It's a triangle pointing to the right, but it's the fucking WrestleMania logo. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I was in the back putting a match together. I'm so far removed from the friggin' play button that it don't mean shit to me.
There you go. I ain't mad at it.
That's my best answer I can give you.
First WrestleMania to be held in San Francisco, the 6th to be held in the state of California, also the 6th to be in an open air venue. We've talked a little bit about this before, but did you prefer an open air venue?
Well, yes, because the gate was bigger, the more people could get there. It would hold more people. There's no arenas, that held 80,000 people, I would imagine, unless it's the Tokyo Dome, Egg Dome, one of those. I don't know. I think they're 65,000 or whatever they are. But when you're outside and it's that time of the year, the fact that it's cool, because when you jam that many people in there, it could be hot. It could get very, very hot if it's a closed setting. That's better for the talent. The only thing that you have is you don't have that acoustics and ambiance, and all the sound sometimes goes straight up and out. So you get a delayed reaction on what's going on in the ring. There's just a slight delay on something happens. There's a slight delay. Then you hear the reaction, even though the people are popping right on cue. It doesn't sound that way sometimes. So it's a little bit off. That's probably the only negative to it, is the acoustics issue. I love the outdoor stadiums when the weather is nice and all that. It just makes for the audience being more comfortable, more cool, not so hot. And it just is a nice setting when you got that many people.
We should mention that this is knee deep in the whole lawsuit between Phil Brooks, the former CM Punk, and Scott Colton, the current Colt Cabana, and WWE. Now, Dr. Chris Amon is part of the suit. He's suing for $2 million in damages, plus some punitive damages. I'm sure you heard all the hubbub. What'd you think of this back and forth about Punk sort of tell all on Colt's podcast and how the WWE and company responded?
Well, I never heard the podcast. I know that the premise of everything that was going on was, now this is what we heard, and it's really all we heard, was there was a misdiagnosed issue with Punk, which Dr. Amen misdiagnosed his illness, and Punk was made to go to work when he felt like he should have proper medical care, which he was not getting. Is that the premise of what was going on at that time?
Well, that's what he's being sued for. Yeah. I mean, he got on there and sort of aired all of his grievances with creative and other talent and all that. But the doc here is going to take great issue with the accusation that he didn't get proper medical care and was just given Z-Pack after Z-Pack. So they went to court and it became a whole mess.
Yeah. And here's the thing, and I always hate to sound stupid and uninformed, and how could you be working there? And, my wife will even ask me, and has asked me over the years, don't you work there? I mean, Jesus Christ. When you have a job with the responsibilities that I had, on a daily basis when I would walk in and figure out what my assignment was, whether it was running a live event or being at TV and having two matches to put together or whatever, I'm pretty much zeroed in on that day's work and what's involved with that. And, you're going to hear things that are hearsay and we would hear rumors about what was going on. But when you had legal issues like that, I always found to not have an opinion. I don't even want to know. That way I can't step on my dick and say the wrong thing and, look stupid or get involved legally with something that by making an opinion that I wasn't well versed on the circumstances. So I just stayed out of all that kind of stuff and legal wranglings and all that. I know the doc felt like his reputation had been damaged, and that was his big deal. That was, his big complaint. And that was just a general thought that was floated around the locker room.
Let's talk about where we are with Brock Lesnar. He walked out of TV in Nashville in late February. He was advertised and scheduled to appear to build up the match here with Roman Reigns. But it didn't go well. There's even a shouting match apparently at that show between Lesnar and Vince that got loud enough that a lot of people heard it and were concerned. He then leaves the arena and, allegedly, whatever the blow up was about was in regards to a new contract. And then right after that, he showed up in a giant suit and tie at UFC 184, which has become, I guess, sort of the standard back and forth piece of negotiation. Fast forward, and Vince holds a meeting and lets the writing staff know there's a problem. Don't rewrite anything yet because Lesnar's still under contract and he feels he'll be here no matter what. But we do maybe need to have a backup plan. About a month after this blow up, he signs a new contract. What did you think of or when did you hear about the blow up in Nashville and what was the feeling at the time? Did you think Brock was done for good, or did you think cooler heads would prevail and money would win in the end?
Well, Brock has always been the smartest guy in this business at self-promotion, knowing what he's worth, knowing what he wants, and what he brings to the table, and having the knowledge that for Vince McMahon, if he was going to sit down and say, okay, we're going to do a police sketch, you tell me what your ideal employee would be, your number one guy, period. That sketch would be Brock Lesnar, period. From him being here before when he left. And, the first time they were offering him the world, the first time. Don't know specifics, but I know it was a bunch. I know it involved a private plane to travel, all kind of stuff. So he has always been in control of his destiny, and he was smart enough to know that not only did WWE want him in the worst way, so did the UFC. And he was just sitting in a position to go, okay, we're all aware of what's going on here. I know you want me. You know you want me. It's up to you guys to decide who's going to get me, who's going to make me the sweetest deal. And he pretty much played one against the other. And he walked out of there with what he wanted. And he will fight again, I guarantee you, in the UFC. He may say he won't, he will. It's because he's a creature of his own destiny. When he wakes up that morning, Brock does what he wants to do, and my hat's off to him to that. I don't know of anybody else. There have been lesser degrees of creative control with guys over the years, but Brock does what Brock wants, and you got to respect that.
Were you aware that Brock, before he re-signed his contract, had been training for an MMA return for like 2.5 months? Was that being discussed when he shows up physically looking different, or does he bring it up in the locker room or anything like that?
No, not really. Brock's from when he was at his, biggest. My God, he probably weighed 300 plus pounds. When he had the most muscle he's ever had, to when he was the least, which was down at fighting weight. What is it, 265, the limit? I mean, he would just be smaller versions of the monster that he was. He was still a monster at 265. And it's not like he walked in the door one day and you went, oh, he's little. He would be different versions of big. Let me just put it to you that way.
Let's keep it moving and talk about what else is happening here on the way to the show. They're doing a very special Hulk Hogan Appreciation Night at Madison Square Garden on February 27th. And as part of the ceremony, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall are there. Ric Flair pops up. It's a big deal to have Hulk Hogan Appreciation Night at MSG. Were you at this show?
I was. It was a big night.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, it just, the Garden is Vince's favorite arena, but make no mistake, there have been other things that happened in Madison Square Garden as big and as lasting and as monumentous as anything that the wrestling industry has done in Madison Square Garden. And the only thing that I thought was a little bit much was, it was said by someone that night that, Madison Square Garden, the house that Hulk Hogan made or built, I think was the quote, which was just a little bit too much, to have the banners and have all these guys come out and pay homage to you, all these top guys, that's Hogan earned that. That's fine. You can go a little bit far with stuff sometimes and we get a little bit pompous in the things we say and are said and the things we do because we just think we can get away with anything in this business and people don't remember or they'll just accept it, So it was a big night. I know it throwed a big chunk of time onto the show that made the show really run like, I want to say it was close to 4 hours or something. Just too much for a house show. That should have been considered and whittled some other stuff down and all that. But I just remember it was a very, very long show. They made a big deal out of Hulk's being there that night. And, I was fine with it.
Do you remember there being any discussion about potential changes when, Hunter and Stephanie became members of the board of directors or did it even matter?
No. One thing everybody knows, there's going to be one guy sitting in that chair until he's in the ground, and that's it. Doesn't matter, who gets what title and who's being elevated hypothetically or, who's going to be running the company is all just speculation because fact is Vince will be in that chair until there is no more Vince. That's fact.
Let's talk about Bill DeMott. This is the same time when Bill is released from the company. Happens on March 6th when he puts a statement out, and WWE and their other website, I don't think are going to acknowledge it, but they do confirm that DeMott is no longer with the company. He's 48 when his run with the company comes to an end. And I guess the gist is there's a lot of folks who are less than pleased with the training techniques and methods of Bill DeMott. And I think one of the guys who was upset is the current Luchasaurus. What do you remember about hearing about what was going on with Bill DeMott, your old friend?
Well, I worked with Bill pretty closely when he was talent and I was an agent, and he was Hugh Morris and all the different renditions of gimmicks that he had. And on a personal level, I like Bill DeMott. I was not around the school very often. Once in a blue moon, we would go down and just kind of to, access talent and find out where their head was at and, kind of evaluate them. But I was on a personal level. I got along great with Bill. We heard some of the things that were going on that were kind of almost surreal and hard to believe. There were rumors of guys having to run the ropes and stuff naked, and things of that nature, which was more of a punishment. I would imagine it would be considered a punishment to me. And some things just like that. But, when you're not there, all you're getting is one side of the story. You're not getting the other side. And there were some weird training techniques, I guess. I don't remember exactly what they were. You might remember better than me, Conrad. But, yeah, it was a bad deal all the way around. I'm sure he didn't, seeing it all shake out as him losing his job and his career. That's for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about where we are with the network. The WWE announces that as of the morning after WrestleMania, it has 1,315,000 paid subscribers, a number that fell almost exactly where the consensus of expectation was. The stock market wasn't impressed as the announcement leads to a major drop. It closed down $2.43 a share, down to $14.09. And this is a day where the stock market actually gained 264 points. So everybody else is going up. WWE's going down. Were you guys, I know when the network first rolled out, there was a lot of, concern because there were massive cuts across the company. People were let go, major expenses were cut, but they were trying to do that because they had all these new startup costs with staff they had to hire for the network. When you hear that, hey, things may not be going exactly as we hoped and we're not hitting our number, does anybody get nervous, or is it business as usual and we don't have time for all that nonsense?
Well, knowing that everything is a work in the wrestling business, everything, every conversation, every figure, how much that house was a work, how much WrestleMania gate was work, the stock prices, fluctuating up and down as work. When we first heard about the network and it was an open meeting, in our production meeting, we were told then, hey guys, it's going to be $9.99. Every customer we have is going to have this. Why would you not? And I agreed with that. For $9.99, who in the hell, if you're a wrestling fan, wouldn't have the network? It just, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out, that's one trip through Wendy's, why the hell wouldn't you have it? But they told us then, okay, when we hit 2 million, which doesn't seem like that big a number. If you think about $9.99 is all it's going to cost, once we hit 2 million, then we're going to start rolling in the gravy. That was the figure that was given to us, and everybody seemed to get on board with that, seeming like it was, not an impossible number to reach at all. So I think everyone was optimistic about that. But the one thing that, somebody floated out there is, okay, all those pay-per-view payoffs are going to go away. Then guys started doing a different set of math, and then the attitude started to change. And, there have been a lot of changes since then, but, the network thing, it seemed like a great idea. And the fact that they had all those libraries of tapes that they had bought from Florida and the Crockett's and WCW and all those places, they had zillions of hours of programming that didn't cost them anything because they already paid for it, that they could put out there and sell and all that. It just, in theory, it sounded like a fantastic idea.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's still one that we're using now, and I think there's probably some changes coming, but I don't regret it, especially for the price. Let's talk about the night before WrestleMania. It's the Hall of Fame. It went down at the SAP Center in San Jose. This class is Randy Savage as a headliner, inducted by his brother, Lanny Poffo. Rikishi, inducted by his sons, the Usos. Alundra Blaze, former Medusa, going in with a little help from Natalia. Larry Zbyszko being inducted by Bruno Sammartino. Tatsumi Fujinami, inducted by Ric Flair. Kevin Nash, inducted by Shawn Michaels. The Bushwhackers, inducted by Johnny Ace. And Arnold Schwarzenegger goes into the celebrity wing, inducted by Triple H. That's a pretty strong ass class right there, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yeah, a lot of deserving guys going in. It was pretty phenomenal. And, you know, sitting there, of all those names and everything that you just said, as far as who was going in and Schwarzenegger being all, you know, there and all that, what do you think was the one thing Brock, my youngest one, wanted to see at the Hall of Fame?
Bushwhackers.
No.
Oh, Alundra Blaze and Natalia?
No.
The Usos and Rikishi?
No.
Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Nope.
Oh, Shawn Michaels?
Nope.
I'm out of names.
Larry Zbyszko.
What?
Yes.
That's a rib.
Well, it turned out to be. Sitting around telling war stories, I would tell Larry stories to Brock and stuff because he's really the wrestling nut. He's the one aspiring to be in the business, and I would tell him stories, and I would do my Larry. I would do my Larry impression. Oh, Arn, they're chanting, Larry sucks. Larry, they mean it. You know, and he thought it was hilarious. I said, now listen, Larry is a guy that believes in all of his own press. When you say?
I've only met Larry one time, and
so
it was that weekend, and Ric Flair just made fun of him relentlessly the next day for wearing the white tuxedo jacket. He kept saying, "Who do you think you are, fucking Bing Crosby, out there with your goddamn white tuxedo?" Just over and over.
His whole tone of voice, everything. I said, Brock, listen, I'm telling you, piss on the limit. If they, short of sending Kane out there to choke slam him like they did Mr. T if he don't get off the stage, Larry is going to spend 45 minutes putting himself over. It's going to steal the show. He's going to be hilarious. Okay, you know, and that the Hall of Fame had gotten so long that the families, by and large, were really, really getting bored. We're sitting there for 4 hours. You know what I mean? It just was too damn long. So, you know, interest in even going was starting to, you know, wane a little bit. So he said, okay, yeah, that will be good. Okay, I'll go. Let's, you know, we'll see that. Little did we know, Larry started telling his story, and he was a 16-year-old kid stuck in a bush behind Bruno's house, trying to get a glimpse of Bruno, and for some reason, he got stuck right there. He took too long to get there, but he got stuck with his story, and he would inch ahead a little bit, and he would go right back to being in the bush, and so they just cut him off. And it was the worst induction I have ever seen by 10. None of the things that I expected Larry to do as far as putting himself over, talking about his career. Oh, Bruno and I sold out Shea Stadium. Oh, Jesus. It was mostly me, but Bruno understood that. It was like just the most outrageous shit that I was expecting to hear. None of it happened. He was stuck in the bush at 16 years old, and everybody just crucified him because expectations were so high. The next day, he comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, Arn, I know you'll tell me the truth. How was it last night?" I said, "Larry, it sucked. I've never been so disappointed in my life. Not only did it suck for me, it sucked for my kid. Like that would really matter, right?" And that was one of the low points / high points of that incredible cast of Hall of Fame members that were being inducted.
Well,
it would be funnier if you knew Larry.
Well, what's never funny and what does suck is when you can't put on the show you want to. And I'm sure that Larry was disappointed, but you're not going to leave anybody disappointed with Blue Chew. Now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Listen up. That's bluechew.com. You know, blue, like the color blue. Blue Chew is bringing you the world's first chewable with the same FDA approved active ingredients as both Viagra and Cialis. Now, to be clear, Blue Chew is prescribed online by licensed physicians. So you don't have to go to the doctor's office or wait in line at the pharmacy. It ships right to your door in a discreet package. It's even made here in the USA. And because they prepare and ship direct, it's cheaper than those other two. And right now we've got a special deal for our listeners, Arn. They can get it real hard for just $5 shipping. That's right. Your first order is free when you use our special promo code ARN at bluechew.com. Again, that's BLUECHEW, bluechew.com. Their promo code is ARN, ARN, and you get to try it for free. And Arn, as you know, Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice. We thank them for sponsoring the podcast and your hard-ons.
It's changing lives. The fact is, it'll take any man from want to can do, and that's it.
Well, we can talk about WrestleMania. Let's get it going here. The kickoff show was hosted by Renee Young, Booker T, Corey Graves, and Byron Saxton are there as analysts. Tom Phillips and Lita are social media correspondents. The English commentators for the event are Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler, and JBL. We've got Lillian Garcia, and who is now known as Brandy Rhodes, as our special guest ring announcers, or our special ring announcers. The opening match, and it's a good one, man, a bit of a sleeper. Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, perhaps the most underrated tag team from this era, retaining the tag titles, getting a win over Big E and Kofi Kingston, who are super hot here as the New Day, Los Matadors, and of course the Usos. 10 minutes, 7 seconds. The show was supposed to start at 3. Instead, the show starts, it's supposed to start at 3:30. Instead, it starts right at 3. So the building is still not all the way filed in yet because they didn't open doors in time. But they get 10 minutes and 7 seconds. They put on a 3.5 star match. Really a pretty fun match, especially when you got this many guys in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Usos are an incredible team. You know, the New Day were starting to get red hot. And, you know, the other guys, the Puerto Ricans, I can't remember their tag team names.
Well, the gimmick name was Los Matadors here.
Los Matadors, that's correct. You know, those guys are good workers, but, you know, the real diamond in the rough was TJ and Cesaro. You know, from the first time I saw them, I went, that's a money team. Those guys are incredible. They're creative. They're athletic. You know, TJ got a great mind for the business. Cesaro can do some inhuman physical things in that ring. Will never, ever probably be realized just how great that guy is as far as the stuff he can do. And, you know, they really shined in this environment. It was a great way to start the night, and the right guys went over.
Let's talk about the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. I guess it's the Memorial Battle Royal. This was something that you guys basically invented the year before at WrestleMania 30. And we know that the Cesaro Superman, the Swiss Superman Cesaro, would actually win in 2014. But here in 2015, it's Big Show. Talk to me a little bit about the challenges of working a Royal Rumble, not a Royal Rumble, but a Battle Royal like this, because you and I've never really talked about it before, but it feels like a good idea on paper until you get in there and realize you may not have the space that you normally do. So there's a lot of forearms.
Yeah, they're, you know, Battle Royals are either really good or they really suck. And it takes a lot of thought. And if you just have a ring full of people, you know, and 4 guys with their butt in the corner, you know, because they don't want to get stepped on or hit in the mouth or all that, you know, it can really suck. But if you have a plan to like have somebody go on a tear and eliminate a bunch of guys right away, and then you have a reset period and you have a little bit of a struggle back and forth, and now you have another, you know, somebody go off the deep end and eliminate 2 or 3 people. And if you space it out and you try to tie the angles that you already have going on TV into those guys, and it's, granted, a lot of them don't have angles on TV and a lot of them aren't on TV. And that's another issue that you have with the Battle Royal. It looks like it's a secondary group of talent when it's not. It's just guys that haven't been on TV. This would be my opinion. Why would anybody ever win that except Big Show?
Right. I mean, that's sort of the obvious question. I mean, when the guy's that big and that strong, he ain't going out unless he wants to go out.
He's a real giant. And I would go a step further and say, okay, Big Show starts, he wins the very first one, and he wins the second one, and now it's established he's the favorite. By the third one, whatever guy that you're trying to get hot that has not had a match on WrestleMania but you have plans for, let him be the next to last guy and make it look like one of those scenarios he's going to upset the giant and he gets eliminated anyway. But you made the guy because he almost got the giant out in a one-on-one situation. It ain't rocket science to figure out how to build guys within that battle royal, but the key has got to be, even though people say there's going to be those that say, well, it gets boring with Show winning every year. No, it doesn't. He's a giant. He should be winning. That's his match, above and beyond everybody. And can you imagine when, if you're 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road and somebody finally takes that victory over Show in that match, now it means something. And what did you do? You invested some time on the pre-show in it. That's all you invested in it. And you have a WrestleMania moment for a guy, even though it's on the pre-show, in the Battle Royal. There it is.
I like it. Of course, the runner up here, the last man to be eliminated, is Damien Mizdow. He's going for a guillotine to pull Show over the top, the same way Chris Benoit did when he won the Rumble in 2004. Show breaks out of it, lots of teases, but eventually Show throws him out, and he's your winner. And next up, it's a big match, man, for the Intercontinental Championship. It's a ladder match, and this is one of those where they're pulling out all the stops. We've got Daniel Bryan, we've got Bad News Barrett, we've got Dean Ambrose, we've got Dolph Ziggler, we've got Stardust, we've got Luke Harper, we've got R Truth. Looking back, man, how freaking loaded was that ladder match?
Yeah, and all with guys that will put their bodies out there, put their minds out there. There were some really creative spots in that deal, but some really talented guys. And I went back and watched this match, man. The danger level with all of those ladders and breaking funky and, guys taking bumps off of one ladder, being almost to the top and, falling out of the ring on top of another one where you can't see behind you. You just all kind of just nuts, crazy stuff. I mean, those guys should have a tremendous bonus for being in that match. They should get a Purple Heart and an accommodation because it is one of the most dangerous, difficult matches. Forget putting it together, to go out and perform that there is. And it was a damn good one.
Yeah. Go out of your way to see this one. It gets 4.25 stars. Again, listen to the talent in this. Cody Rhodes, Luke Harper, Bad News Barrett, Dolph Ziggler, Jon Moxley, R Truth, Daniel Bryan. My goodness, the talent here. They pull out all the stops. Of course, Stardust, aka Cody Rhodes, does pull out the bedazzled ladder in honor of his dad. Really cool match here. Really cool to see Daniel Bryan, after winning it all at WrestleMania 30 and then having to leave the business with some injuries, and he comes back and gets the Intercontinental title win here. A really big deal. Later, they would even have a little backstage segment where you've got a bunch of Intercontinental guys greeting each other. It's Pat Patterson and, of course, Ricky Steamboat and Roddy Piper and Ric Flair and all these all-time greats. And they're sort of paying homage to Daniel Bryan here. It's a cool thing to see Daniel, even though it's not the world title. I mean, just that he's there. It's a big deal considering, the way it all went down at the last WrestleMania. It's nice to see him here.
Yeah. And he earned it. And people knew that. And he's an overachiever. every time he went to the ring, he gives you a good match. He works his ass off, gives you everything he's got. And he's a storyteller. Daniel Bryan earned their respect, and I was glad to see that too.
Big deal to have him here. Go out of your way to watch it. 4.25 stars. The next match has a finish that everybody remembers. It's Randy Orton and Seth Rollins. They get plenty of time here, 13 minutes and 15 seconds. It's really a great match. It shows everybody what these guys are capable of. It's the second match on the show, and they're following a big ladder match. And what follows them is Triple H and Sting. So they probably feel a lot of pressure, to put on a big match, and they do, man. And this finish where it looks like Rollins is going for a curb stomp, but Orton gets up and, jumps into the air and hits the RKO was the most flawlessly executed thing that you would think that you could do 100 times and you wouldn't get it right. And they got it right. I mean, maybe they practiced it that day, but Lord, they got it right. Like they do it every night when you go back and watch it. Really impressive stuff.
It was athletic excellence, period. Randy Orton was at his best, in his element. Seth Rollins, you know, he's got a gimmick, the moniker, the architect. He is that. He is an architect. And they put together a match that was competitive, and it featured both guys. And, you know, that finish came out of a place that you thought this was going to happen. And 360 degrees, something else happens. And Randy hitting that RKO out of that attempted curb stomp was just beautiful. And it was an excellent match. The guys gelled together, credible, and they tore the joint down.
They really did. Really, really cool to see. Next up, the real reason we're here, the match that everybody remembers the most from this show. Sting and Triple H. Let's rewind. At Survivor Series, Sting makes his much anticipated WWE debut, attacking Triple H in the main event Survivor Series elimination match. Fast forward to January 19th, Sting makes his Raw debut. A week after that, they have a face-to-face confrontation on Raw. In early February, he calls out Sting, and a bunch of Sting impersonators appear. At Fastlane, they start brawling until eventually Sting points to the WrestleMania sign in the rafters with his baseball bat. And now the stage is set. We're here, and Sting gets quite an entrance, the Asian drum treatment. And then here comes Triple H with his Terminator remake. Here we go. It's Triple H and Sting. Sting finally in a WrestleMania. You had been around a long time. Were you happy to see Sting finally get his spot on a WrestleMania show? Or did you think it was perhaps too late and worried about his nerves? Or where were you on Sting finally being here?
Well, I thought it was 15 years too late. We can all look back at wannabes, and, you know, I'm a guy that thinks Taker should still be riding the wave of his undefeated streak. That's just me. You only get one crack at some stuff, and Sting being the last holdout, you know, it would have been nice if Sting would have came across when WCW was done and be pushed like the star that he was. After Hunter's entrance with having the governor / Terminator give you a plug like that, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a world-renowned star in every arena that he's in, political and everything else. You know, after that entrance of Hunter's, who got himself in, you know, he's always in tremendous shape, but he was really in shape for this thing. You know, after that entrance, you should have just did the finish and went home. Because it was such a cool looking for guys, you know, Hunter's entrance with the skeletons and all that stuff was really cool, you know, and you know, they had the right idea in possibly having to start over and start wrestling. You know, if I was sitting in the back and going, okay, they just had the ladder match. They just had Randy's match, which was, you know, pretty incredible finish, but got them settled down a little bit. okay, that might work and I'm trying to put myself in the head of the talent and stuff. But as I saw it, a tackle drop down, hip toss, and those type spots to try to reset the audience, all it did was give the announcers, and I know this was fed to them, they just buried Sting. Minnow in a big pond, just total condescending, guys out of his element. This is WrestleMania now. You're just a small minnow in a huge lake. Whatever all the commentary was exactly, it was meant to just basically beat you over the head with, we won the war. We're WWE. We won the war. Here's your big star. Well, he ain't a big star here tonight. Other than continuing to put the guy over and put some mystery into the match, I'm a huge proponent of, if you just go out and say, hey, Marco Stunt's a little pissant. I could beat him by mailing a paper airplane across the room. Then that's what he is. He's a little pissant that you could just step on and keep walking. But if you put the guy over for being ballsy beyond belief because he's a third my size, if this goes over 30 seconds, it's going to be a huge moral victory for this guy. There's so many ways to put your opponent over without demeaning yourself. You just, as a heel, you put yourself over just a little more. And to just bury him on the commentary, and if you go back and watch it and listen to it, they just buried him. And it just, as it turned out, they prostituted each other's finishes, which I'm not a fan of because guys don't have finishes anymore. The evolution of all that means, used to be, strategy of a match was you would work and work and work to try to get an advantage. And then when you saw the advantage, wear a guy down, you hit your finish, and that's what you needed, and you won the match. It was simple psychology. But now that everybody kicks out of everybody's finish, you don't have a finish anymore, so you can't build to that drama of that pop. Finishes are just high spots. Nobody has a finish anymore, and when you got a whole show of it, it really gets old quick because you're just prostituting everything. But as the match got deeper and they started the run-ins, one question I have for you, was it ever said that this was a no DQ match?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe that it was. And I know that was a late addition. I'm friendly with Kevin Nash, and I was actually at this show, and I got to hang with him a little bit before the show got going in the back. And, I said, I'll be honest, I kind of didn't expect that you would still be here. I thought you would have been home to Florida. And he said, oh, me too. But not only do they need me to come out and wave, they want me to do a run in. And I told them I ain't running nowhere. I'm going to do a walk in. But I don't even have any of my shit. I don't have my knee brace or anything. I said, why not? And he said, because they just told me we're doing it today. So he just literally, that was a last minute addition where it's like, hey, can you stay till the end of the show? And, yeah, why? Well, we need you to do a run in, and, it's booked on the fly that day.
100% believe that. 100% believe it. And it's trying to kick dirt over something that there would have been another way to do it. The match would have started hot. It wouldn't have to go too long. And, if you're deciding you're not going to use Sting in any other capacity, Hunter's going to be there, the next year and the year after that, and the year after that. Okay. You go Hunter's way, and Hunter wins the match. And that's what it is if you're not going to use Sting anymore. But if you want to get that Sting Undertaker match and you want to get another match out of him and possibly get several TVs out of him, what would be wrong with putting Sting over right in the middle with his finish? Because you got enough stuff on that show, so it feels like a complete show once you've seen it all. It's not up to one match to have to cover everything. And for me, I don't recall that being a no DQ. And when you hit a guy with a sledgehammer right in the face, right in front of the referee, if there's ever a DQ, that would have to be one. Now, if there was something said on commentary to revise that match while it was going on, I might have missed it. But if you're sitting in that audience and you're thinking this is a wrestling match because they're wrestling, tackle, drop down, hip toss is wrestling 101, then you're going to be a little confused how guys bring ball bats in the ring and hit each other with sledgehammers. And, if it's not a street fight / no DQ, that was one problem I had. And then when it was all said and done, if you really think about it, everyone on both run-ins had a relationship with Hunter in some capacity.
Yeah.
Sting's the only WCW guy. His biggest nemesis, the entire look of the show for however long was Sting versus the NWO, right?
Right.
Why would they come down in his behalf?
Didn't make any sense to anybody, dude.
None.
Even worse though, is after he gets hit in the head with the sledgehammer, it just shakes his hand.
I was getting there. You killed my pop, damn it. But I tell you what, it just shows what a smart guy you are. But it didn't take a brain surgeon to figure it out. After all that bullshit, run in, abuse, hit me in the face with a sledgehammer, I'm going to just shake your hand and walk out. It's another one of those deals of the WWE just beating you over the head with this is a work. Guys, it's just entertainment. It don't mean shit. The match is over now. We'll go back to being just entertainers. I don't think the audience needs that. I don't think they want it.
Help me understand, because maybe we're way off base, but a lot of fans online they sort of believe that Triple H sees wrestling totally differently than Vince McMahon. And they credit a lot of that belief to, well, hey, look at what he's done with NXT. And no, NXT wouldn't do this. This is just what they're doing on the main roster. And that's Vince. But this isn't a seemingly nonsensical, overbooked hodgepodge. Was this Hunter's booking, or is this a lot of this Vince insisting that it be presented this way?
I have no idea. I know that Hunter will never be able to override Vince's idea, no matter how good his is that he has, or how it applies, or what, more appropriate it would be. If Vince has an idea, the harder you push against him, the harder he pushes back. And he just happens to have a lot more weight behind his push, because there was a whole bunch of shit. I mean, why would you kick out a Shawn Michaels super kick on top of Hunter's pedigree and all the other finishes you compiled and piled on top of each other?
Yeah.
You're not building anybody. You're killing everything off. I don't understand why guys of this era don't understand your finish is the one thing that you should have sacred. Once you hit your finish on the guy, he's beat. That's why it's your finish. If you didn't have confidence in it because it had a proven record, why is it the move that you choose to win a match? If you're NFL quarterback and your claim to fame is you can throw a 40-yard perfect spiral that, 20 yards and out, and a quarterback can put it in a guy's hands on the inside shoulder 100% of the time. Why would you not go to that? Find a way to get to that and stay with it until you finally get in the end zone. It's real simple. Go with what your best stuff is to try to win a match. And to throw, he got out of Sting's finish. Sting got out of however many finishes. And after getting hit in the face with a sledgehammer, he was up 1 minute later, shaking a guy's hand. It just shits on everything.
I got to circle back to something that you mentioned here. You said earlier, they were burying Sting on commentary, saying things like, oh, you're a minnow, and this is WrestleMania. That's all coming from Vince, I assume?
Yes. I'm sure. Well, that's what I led with. I'm sure they were being fed that. because, Bradshaw, who can give a talent's perspective and do a good job because he's got a good personality and he's an entertaining guy, and JBL is an entertaining character. But to just go on and on and on of putting Triple H over and dumping on Sting, and the comparison being, this guy's a pro, you're Sandlot, you're Little League. This guy's an all-pro in the NFL, you're on Pee Wee League. And that was, if you go back and listen to the commentary, that was the premise of it all. And it just, other than building the match, as the match was building, it was like tunnel vision. Okay, dipshit, we finally got you to come on board. Now we're going to just bury you. And that's pretty much what happened. If this was, and they made it was like, I think there was a comment made of, it's like an AFL team coming and challenging the NFC champions or something, however many, years later. The comparisons were just brutal, and you weren't doing anything to build the character Sting. And I don't know, I've never been a fan of that. You don't say old, you don't say too small, you don't say fat. Find something in your opponent that makes him special. So when he beats you, somebody beat you. Otherwise, a little guy beat you, or an old guy beat you, or a fat guy beat you. It's just common sense.
Why do you think Vince was down on Sting here? Was he just trying to prove that the WWF was the dominant brand over WCW? Is he just a mark for a son-in-law? Or are there certain things about Sting's presentation at the time that, Vince didn't like? We've sort of joked tongue in cheek for a long time with Eric Bischoff that the reason he changed the finish for Starrcade 97 when Hogan wrestled Sting finally is because Hogan felt like Sting wasn't tan and in shape, and he hadn't taken it seriously. He hadn't been training and preparing for the big match. And a lot of people were criticizing Sting's appearance there. Of course, Sting had started to lose a little hair. Maybe he needed keeps a little sooner than he got it. And perhaps he wasn't as tan or as muscular or whatever as Vince McMahon would have wanted him to be.
Well, it's because it wasn't 15 years ago.
There you go.
And the reality is this, it was the last nail that Vince could nail into the coffin and say, okay, it's done. We're the superior company. They said they're going to put us out of business. They led for all those weeks, but in the end, here's your last remaining guy, and he was your biggest star, and we just crushed him before your very eyes at the biggest event of the year. It is now officially done. It's like WCW never existed now. That's what would have been going through his mind. It's the last vestige of WCW. We just squashed them.
Oh man. It's amazing that we're finally getting to talk about this, and I appreciate you.
It's depressing, isn't it?
It is. It got 2.5 stars in the Observer, but it was just, Meltzer was right. They treated it like the wrestling where it just ended and WWE won. Obviously people are very critical about it. It's very controversial. We've beat it up enough. Let's talk about the next match. AJ Lee and Paige are going to take on the Bella Twins. They get 6 minutes and 36 seconds, 2.5 stars from Dave, but Dave says the crowd treated this like intermission. He said the work was fine. I should mention 5 days after this, AJ Lee officially retires from WWE. She announces that she's going to be leaving wrestling effective April 3rd. She's only 28 years old. Of course, she's the real life wife of CM Punk. Probably not a surprise. She was not in the best spot here once his issues with the company came to a head and he left, but she kept working. It really put her in a lose-lose spot, did it not?
Well, yeah, I felt bad for her. She was a pro. She was a good worker. Everyone in that match were good workers. And I'm sure from a physicality standpoint, the match was fine. Just, placement. Again, when you're looking at this, look at all they've already seen. they just saw that massive run in and all that mess and getting hit in the face with the sledgehammer and all this stuff. And now you just put a tag match out there. I mean, the audience has to catch their breath sometimes, and sometimes they don't react 100% of them standing. If that didn't happen, well, maybe they're catching their breath from the previous match, but I'm sure it wasn't because what they were doing was not good, because they were good performers, all of them.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about how much you enjoyed Nikki Bella's work. Paige was obviously a great performer. And I think, AJ Lee is one of the unsung heroes of the era. I got to see her work in real life, and it's one time seeing them perform on TV. It's another to see it up close and personal at a house show. And man, she was one heck of a wrestler. And I hope we get to see her again sometime, because she's still very, very young. I mean, this was just 5 years ago. So she's only 33 years old. Still got plenty of gas left in the tank if she wants to use it.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the next match. And man, you want to talk about something that feels like it's from a fever dream. It's John Cena versus Rusev. And Rusev has got such a great gimmick here. He's the brute, and he's going to ride to the ring in a fucking tank. And it's essentially the Ivan Drago presentation, where he has his beautiful wife as the spokesperson, and they're taking on the All-American, never give up American hero, John Cena. Plenty of time on this one. It was a big match, John, or it was the big match, John. And you knew that was going to be the case when you see Rusev come out to the Russian national anthem in a freaking tank, man. Great stuff. I really enjoyed the match. 3.5 stars. What'd you think?
I loved the entrance. God almighty. For a heel, how cool was that? And playing that Russian national anthem and the colors all out there, the flags and all that was cool as shit. You know what people need to remember, and this was the last time it was done properly. Rusev didn't lose for a year.
Yeah.
And we actually, back when people actually listened to me, believe it or not, there was a time, don't fall out of your chair, that some people thought I had a valid opinion. We talked about that a year before. If we can keep this guy whole and keep him good and build him, not beat him for a year, it's not been done. And probably since Umaga would be the last one that was built properly, a heel, you'll have a red hot heel, about a year from now. Because the guy, he had a good gimmick. Him and Lana looked good together in that gimmick. She fit perfectly. Rusev was receptive to listening and learning and getting better, and he's a big, rugged bastard too. And as that match built, again, I went back and watched it too, when it got towards the end and them struggling to get to their finish and all that stuff, it felt like a struggle was going on. And when John won the match, it felt good. He had worked hard to get there. And it was a good match.
Really, really fun to see John in his prime here. I think this is some of his best work, bringing another guy along at WrestleMania. Rusev, even though he's on a losing effort here, it's a big deal to be in a match with John Cena at WrestleMania, especially with this big treatment. And next up, we see something that, would be a precursor for a long time. Triple H and Stephanie come out. They announce the fake attendance number and claim all the credit for the success of WrestleMania. And then, of course, The Rock comes out. Fans go nuts. And eventually it leads to the introduction of Ronda Rousey, who's sitting front row, jumps in the ring, and we go head to head and get a little physicality. Ronda Rousey being involved in a segment was a huge deal for the company at the time. They were looking for something to go viral, and this was it. I thought this was very well done. Huge reaction from the live crowd, and one of the cooler moments of the entire WrestleMania.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Ronda Rousey's a huge, huge star and world renowned. Everybody knows who she is. She was the face of the UFC for God, I don't know how long, and that's having John Jones and different guys, Cain Velasquez, Lesnar, everybody included. Ronda was the face of the company for a while, and that's a hell of a feat for a 140-pound woman, and she's a tremendous athlete, tremendous performer, and that was really cool. And that's, Hunter was at his best during this deal. He really was. He came back out, and Stephanie is a world-class heel, and that thing really gelled with all of them. Rock felt good being out there, and it was a hell of a segment.
It was. It's weird though to think that it's a 24-minute segment. It's longer than any match on the show, but I guess when you got the biggest movie star in the world, the biggest UFC fighter in the world, you roll with what you got. Next up is something a little weird. It's Bray Wyatt and the Undertaker. The Undertaker being at WrestleMania is not weird at all, but because it's a West Coast show and we don't get the total darkness yet inside the stadium, this feels weird, does it not? The Undertaker and Bray Wyatt in the daytime?
Not as eerie.
Yeah.
You lose the sci-fi part of it. Before we move on to that, let me say that, and one of the biggest things that, besides it was performed well, the Ronda Hunter stuff with Rock and them, it was as important that it was a first. There aren't that many firsts anymore. You know what I mean? Besides, it was well done. It was first time we'd seen all those guys in the ring together. Moving on. Yeah, that was a little bit, Undertaker was in great shape for this too. I was so happy to see that, his body felt better, and, he had been working out really hard, and his diet was good. He looked good. If it's not pitch black though, you lose a little bit of that on the entrance, and his entrance is a big part of the deal. It's that's the build to the Undertaker. And, not to say once the bell rang, those guys didn't have a good match. They did.
Meltzer would say not a great match or anything, but given Wyatt's injury and all, it was fine. Undertaker is nowhere near what he was a few years ago, but he was a lot better and looked in better shape than last year. Of course, last year is a reference to WrestleMania 30 when he lost to Brock Lesnar in New Orleans. Let's reference the injury though. Earlier in the day, before the doors are open, Bray Wyatt is working out in the ring, going over his match, and he rolled his ankle. And apparently he's hurt pretty bad to the point they go ahead and put him in a cast, and he wears it the rest of the day until it's time to get in the ring. But there was never any talk of him not making the show, but it does explain why maybe he wasn't quite what you had seen, from him in the past.
Well, I don't even remember that. So it wasn't something they made a big deal out of, and there's more than having a great match than taking big bumps. The one thing that, and I didn't go back and watch it because I didn't have to, but the one thing that stands out, you build a match to a finish, and it's like a story, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you throw some curveballs in there along the way to keep you interested and, keep you in character. And the one thing that I remember is Bray did the alien, what we did the alien crawl. He had the Undertaker down selling, and he did that deal where he rolls around off of all fours and spins around, and he's upside down.
Yep.
Basically, we call it the alien crawl. And he looks over at the Undertaker, and the Undertaker sat up. Well, there's a WrestleMania moment.
Absolutely.
And it's a moment that lasts in time. And, that all figures in, for me anyway, those special moments in a match, to whether a guy had a good match or not. You built to that. It worked. They popped. We can move on now. And that's one of the things I remember. And it was such good character stuff that the audience loved it. And it's not about just getting slammed off the top or clotheslined over the top or whatever the deal, choke slammed or whatever the deal may be. But again, I'm going to go ahead and say it. There's no reason Bray should have kicked out of that first tombstone. Tombstone's a kill shot. No disrespect to Bray. Why? Why should it take two? And that's a problem that, when I'm in the ground, they'll just go, oh, that old bastard was stuck on that, protecting everybody's finishes. I think over time, because nobody's coming up with new moves, and until they have a big bag of new moves that they dump out in the middle of the ring and say, okay, pick your finish out, something they're going to believe, something that's exciting, something you can build to, something you can counter out of. Okay, which one you want to grab. Until that happens, I think a lot of stuff gets thrown away. And once you throw it away, you can't go back and get it again and it be as effective. And they had some of that going on this match too. And it's just, once it happens, match after match after match, it's not special anymore. It's just nobody can keep the other guy down. And it's hard to build a story if that's the premise.
Let's talk about our main event. Let's talk about Brock Lesnar defending his world title against Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is no longer the fan favorite. Once upon a time, he was everyone's favorite member of the Shield, but they're down on him now. They're booing in a big way, but they have a huge match here, pulling out all the stops. This is one of the places we first hear about Suplex City, bitch. And, 16 minutes and 44 seconds is what we've got. It looked like it's going to end very quickly when they're going straight 4 F5s. There is some blood here at a time where we don't think there's supposed to be blood allowed. And then randomly, of all things, Seth Rollins cashes in his Money in the Bank opportunity. And when it's all said and done, Seth Rollins wins the world title, 4.5 stars. Quite a big twist. Meltzer loved it. He says the win by Rollins serves a number of purposes. It gets the title off of Lesnar so it can be back in play while Lesnar takes the next few months off without beating Lesnar and hurting the company's huge money investment. It's also clearly not the time for Reigns to win, more because of crowd reactions, because he wasn't Daniel Bryan. Whether Reigns was being booed more than cheered as a face on television will hurt his career going forward, or if he's turned and if the boos go away, he was clearly hurt this year by the company's insistence on not breaking title plans for the second straight year to acquiesce to the local or the most vocal portion of the fan base. So it serves a lot of purposes, I guess, to do it this way. I thought the finish was good. The internet loved it. What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was creative. It was a great way to end the show. Roman Reigns, what he showed you in that match, I don't know if anybody got it. They're going to say, got his ass kicked. Yep, sure did. And you know what? He kept getting up. Brock Lesnar must have suplexed him 20 times. Every shot across the shoulders with a forearm, every kick in the head, every punch was in there. Both guys were proving a point within a work. They were proving a point to themselves, they were proving a point to each other, and they were proving a point to the audience because that's the way they wanted to structure the match. Roman sold 80% of the match, I would say, probably. But he sold in a way that you never thought that he was just staying down, wasn't still in the fight, wasn't trying to win the match. But Brock was just dominant, and that's what Brock does. And the reality is, Brock Lesnar is just an animal, and he's a machine, and nobody's going to do anything out there that Brock doesn't allow to happen. And I don't think anybody got juice because, number one, I don't think Lesnar would even consider it. If you told him you needed him bleeding, he'll just run head first into a post. Hell, I've seen it. I don't think you can hurt the guy. I don't think he's ever been hurt. I don't think you can hurt him. He's a freaking cyborg. And if he was bleeding, it's because he ran face first into something, didn't put his hands up. And I thought by bringing Seth down, you created a lot of controversy. Didn't see that coming. It was a way to get a clean finish. And something like that, screwing Roman that badly, actually helps him. You feel sorry for a guy like that. It's like, my God, how many other things can you throw on top of him? You just dumped a pile of rocks, and now you're going to dump the truck over on top of him too. My God. So I think it helped. And, if you go back and check Roman's history when he was with the Shield, the reason Roman was over is because he was a kick-ass Samoan. And if he said anything, it was, hey, believe that. And he went out and showed you it was something to be believed. The build with Roman Reigns was all wrong. Suffering succotash will go down as a huge mistake that the guy was made to say. And most of it is not his fault the way the fans have treated him. Trust me, guys, he didn't come through that curtain without being given direction. And he didn't do these promos without somebody handing him a sheet of paper that it was written on. So I've seen a different Roman Reigns. I've seen him go through 25-minute matches with Braun Strowman and them tear the joint down, and Braun took 90% of the match. And Roman was just able to hang in there, and at the end of the night, they were cheering for Roman Reigns. Unless you've seen those live events like I have, and him put under circumstances that he's put under where he has to dig his way out and see how he turns an audience in the course of 30 minutes. Once you've seen that, you look at him completely different. Nothing but respect for Roman. He continues to be a huge stalwart of their company and just a hell of a damn workhorse, and hats off to him.
One of the better WrestleManias in a long time. It got 93.4% thumbs up, 1.6% thumbs down, 5% thumbs in the middle. It's almost unanimous. Seth, Brock, and Roman have the best match of the night. The worst match of the night, according to the readers of the Wrestling Observer poll, was the ladies, AJ and Paige against the Bella Twins. Second worst was Triple H and Sting. Overall, I thought this was a damn good WrestleMania. I'm glad I was to say I was there. How would you rate this WrestleMania? You saw them all.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it. It had a good work rate and, a little bit long, but at least it wasn't 8 hours total, which it has morphed into being. I think it ran about 4 hours plus the pre-show. So it wasn't overwhelmingly long, and I think everybody, did a good job from a performance standpoint. It was a good show.
It was a good show, and we hope you guys thought this was a good show. We'll be back next week with hashtag Ask Arn Anything. The best and easiest and cheapest way to support the show is to support us on Patreon. We've got all the information for you right there at adfreeshows.com. Be sure to check that out if you haven't already. That's adfreeshows.com. We've got a lot of new content rolling up there. You'll get our shows early. You'll also get our notes and research for the show, and you get it all ad-free at adfreeshows.com. And you can also pick up a shirt at arnshirts.com. And don't forget, we have got some phenomenal designs over there. We're uploading new stuff all the time. If Arn has said something funny on the show that you enjoyed, odds are good it's on a shirt at arnshirts.com. Until next week, if you'd like to ask a question, follow us on Twitter at The Arn Show. Pinned to the top, you'll see where Dave Silva's looking for your questions. Ask your question there, and then listen in next week and every week to Arn, only on Westwood One. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.